Welcome to episode 11 of the Tales from a Gear Addict podcast. Quick thoughts. So, for today's topic, I was just thinking about, as I got a lot of stuff done for the channel on YouTube and Instagram and all the social medias, and I got more episodes posted. Shout out to Apple Podcasts and Spotify for hosting our first hour episode. It's about, I'll link it. Go check it out. Pretty cool. But I was thinking of having to do all of these things like production, pro audio stuff, mixing and mastering and recording, plus the having the content to speak about, plus all the different gear. We just launched a video about Stringjoy strings and had to do that, and that was exciting. Props to those guys for making some good product. But I was thinking, can you have too many hobbies? Let's go over that. I don't know. There's a lot to unpack there. But over the last decade, 15 years, something like that, I've always just been a sort of busybody, right? Where you have the desire to do one thing, then you do it for X amount of time, and then you pique your interest in something else, and you move on to the next thing, but you're still doing the first thing, and it just snowballs and builds and builds and builds, right? So, like right now, 10 years or 15 years later, whatever it's going to be, I currently have tried like a ton of things. I've tried my hand at photography, tried my hand at videography, right? We're making YouTube videos and stuff. Now I'm doing a podcast. I've played professionally. I've played in churches. I've played various different bands throughout the years. I've literally tried to do almost everything. And I've always kind of come back to the just soul music thing, like creating music, right? So that's the big one. I'll never give that up, I don't think. It's just drums and guitar and music, and making music is always so fun. But having to do stuff like DIY things around the house, like you can see that behind right there, I thought of that for my snare rack, and thinking of like I made a cable holder out of some spare parts in the house, and put pennies on the end of some poles there to keep the cables in so I can hold all my cables up. And always having time to do that is tough, but I don't know. I was thinking, can you have too many hobbies? Will they distract? It's like the law of diminishing returns, right? Where you spend so much time doing something that in the end, it's actually hurting your final product, whatever that's going to be. Which is super weird, right? Like, I have a photography page, so I'd be taking photos with the camera that I'm using. And I take videos, drumming, and everything else like that. And that was taking away from the focus of, said, the show, right? Where I'm focusing on having to set up the camera or set up the GoPro. And then, I played a good show or I didn't, whatever. It's on video now. So then I have to go then record the audio, or rather not record, sorry. I have to go to Pro Tools and mix the audio. Then I have to put it into Final Cut to actually make the video of it. Well, guess what? That took a lot of time, right? That took, I don't know, probably a day worth of time to do all that, right? To get everything good and ready to be published. Whereas that's a lot of time I could use to be, say, honing my guitar skills, honing my drum skills, you name it, right? Looking up, learning more things about videography, like focusing on individual subjects. But because I'm always trying to do the next best thing, I find I'm spreading myself super thin here. But this podcast is kind of a way to bring it all back, I think. So when I'm sitting here trying to edit the video and put stuff out on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and our website and, Buzzsprout, whatever we got going on here, I feel like it's all kind of towards one goal, though. And as much as I love gear, I also like playing music just as much. So trying to balance the fact that I have to practice, right? The first episode I ever did of this stuff, for the quick thoughts, it's called the warm-up routines, right? I think that falls into practice routines as well. So when you warm up before a show or something like that, or even warm up before you start playing by yourself, right? When you start playing to practice, you should warm up too. But I was saying, before shows, I don't normally have time to warm up, or I at least don't make the time. And is that a good or bad thing? I play 40 to 50 shows a year, and thanks to Dave Elich, shout out, I stopped hurting myself during these shows and recordings. But now, I don't know. Warm-up routines, practice routines, it all goes back to that. And it's like, okay, well, should I practice? And everything leans towards yes, but hey, maybe I want to go learn how to do some more videography tricks, or maybe I want to go learn how to do some, dive into my pedal board like I'm going to be doing here pretty soon on a live stream or something. Is that too many? Can we have enough time to focus? Do we have enough bandwidth, right? Joe Rogan, his podcast has said a lot of things, and I listen to it almost religiously at this point. But he had a good point when he was talking to somebody. I can't remember the name of the guest, but he was saying that the human mind only has so much bandwidth, right? You only have so much, literally only have so much ability to focus on certain things that you start to get like tunnel vision, right? Or you start to gray out the sides where your things you should be focusing on, you're diverting your ability and your bandwidth to focusing on this stuff. So doing things like having 3 or 4 or 5 hobbies, photography, videography, music. I mean, music itself is a hobby, trying to play music, but collecting gear is also a hobby and all this other stuff. And it was just saying, yeah, you have a finite amount of bandwidth that you're using for all these things. But I feel like each of these hobbies that I'm referring to, for myself personally, is just another way to get the creativity out, to get the energy out. Because I feel I've got this very pent-up energy about, we got to do things, I got to do something. And my kids take up a lot of that energy, but even after that, I still have a reserve tank full of energy for things like creating music and doing this podcast, and I'm really excited for things. So can we have too many hobbies? That's debatable. I guess it's up to the person. Like, if you know your amount of bandwidth, right? If you only have this much bandwidth, right? Closing in my head here, and then you do XYZ things. So that's 3 things that you are now trying to spend time on. That takes up your bandwidth. Well, if you're a person that can operate like that, then that works for you. But if you're somebody that's, it takes a lot of self-awareness to recognize this in yourself as well. Whereas, some people I know are really, really good at maybe 1 or 2 things, but you start adding more things, the spinning plates idea, right? You start adding more plates and they lose track and the plates fall down, right? Whereas some other people I know, a lot of entrepreneurial-minded individuals, they're really good at compartmentalizing almost, right? Where you have this much energy for this much energy for this, and it's back and forth, and you have all these boxes that you put your energy into, and they can do it. They can maintain all of these different things and hobbies. But you got to be self-aware. You have to know yourself and know what your limits are, because sometimes I feel like it's going up to my limits where it's just a lot of things, right? Sometimes the kids are more challenging, or sometimes the kids are less challenging. That's rare occasion, but sometimes, you just get home from jobs, right? I have a 9 to 5. When I get home from that, I just like, oh, I want to sleep, or like, oh, I just want to sit down and eat a bowl of ice cream. But hey, I got to go to the gym, right? I do that 3 days a week too. But can you do all these things and still maintain focus and not lose integrity of the work that you're trying to do, or valuably, I guess, or keep the value in what you're trying to learn, and do all these hobbies, right? But I don't know. It's a discussion that I was just curious about today. I don't have like a lot to say about it, I don't think, but I was just curious because I just find myself it's like almost ADD like, but it's not ADD really. It's where the thing I'm most excited about, I'll tend to dive into, right? Just face first, just literally jump into it, and then ask questions later. That's really kind of how I operate personally. Whereas just I try and figure out as much as I can, and at some point I just make the decision to jump, and I go right into whatever I'm trying to do. And guess what? You'll figure it out as you go. That's what a lot of people do. I mean, it's a good skill to have. It's a very good thing to be able to harness. Is, hey, you know what? I've got the wherewithal and the capacity to figure things out on the go. Because especially when you're doing things like shooting a podcast, uploading YouTube videos, recording music, playing live shows, trying to, do all this stuff, you've got to be able to focus. You got to be able to do all these things. So, I don't know. It's kind of a short one today. I guess it's only 10 minutes, but let me know what you guys think. I'm curious. Yeah. Can we have too many hobbies? I'd say my final verdict, yes, you can, but for some people, that number that is their threshold is greater, like myself, and for some people, that threshold is lower. So really got to be self-aware and know where your limits are. And all that said, it is good sometimes to push your limits and to see, what is your breaking point. in just anything really, but specifically about these hobbies, because who knows, you might find, you like underwater basket weaving, and you're able to focus energy on that as well as XYZ other things. And you're like, hey, I can do 4 of these things reliably well and produce good results. Great. That's awesome that you found that. But you never would have known unless you tried, right? So, I don't know. All right, well, that's it for today's quick thoughts. But hey, let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Please follow on Spotify, subscribe on here and Apple Podcasts. We have a Buzzsprout as well, which is pretty cool. Instagram's at TFGAPod. I post there regularly, pretty much every day, a couple times a day. But yeah, so too many hobbies. That's up to you. All right, see you guys later. Peace.